Welcome to Roofing Road Trips, the podcast that takes you on a thrilling journey across the world of roofing. From fascinating interviews with roofing experts to on-the-road adventures, we'll uncover the stories, innovations, and challenges that shape the rooftops over our heads. So fasten your seatbelts and join us as we embark on this exciting roofing road trip.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Roofing Road Trips. My name's Karen Edwards, and today we are going to be talking all about wood nailers and alternatives. And to have this conversation, we've invited the expert into the house, Eric from Carlisle Architectural Metals. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Karen.
Eric, so could you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and what your role is there?
Sure. Eric Younkin, as you mentioned, I'm with Carlisle Architectural Metals. Real quickly, what Carlisle Architectural Metals is, it is composed of 5 brands. Historically, it was Peterson Metals and Drexel Metals. And then in addition, the recent acquisition by Carlisle of MTL Holdings, which includes Citadel Architectural Products, as well as Hickman Edge Systems and Metal Era. So this whole thing about wood nailers and alternatives is really going to gear around our 2 brands on related to edge metal, that being Metal Era and Hickman Edge Systems.
Excellent. Okay. And what do you do there?
So I am in charge of both the product management, product development teams, as well as our technical services / engineering team. So in terms of anything that goes on designing a project, we assist in developing products, codes, and testing. And anything that touches the product lifecycle.
Excellent. That's a lot of responsibility. All right. So let's talk about wood nailers and what they are and what their job is.
Yeah. So wood nailers, typically some might refer to it as blocking, but it's wherever we're going to have a termination of the roof system. Predominantly, we refer to it mostly at the edge, but we also see it internally around any type of maybe a curb or something, or a roof hatch or something of that sort. But it's really, historically, it's been a wood component that is put on the wall or on the roof deck that allows you to build up the insulation equal to the height of the wood and allows for securement of both the roofing membrane and, more importantly, the edge securement, so the metal edge, whether that be a drip edge or some type of fascia. It's really the foundation for edge securement. So it's the unseen factor that really goes into performance on the edge.
Wow. So it plays an important role in keeping the roof on the roof during severe weather, right?
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, typically we've seen these. Typically, you will see 2x6s. That's kind of the standard that you see in the industry. Both Spry and Factory Mutual have guidelines through their literature on what is a wood nailer, as well as the NRCA. Typically, everybody says a minimum of a 2x6. But if you have a flange, a metal edge that has a bigger flange, you want to make sure that your wood nailer extends beyond that flange of the metal enough so you have proper securement. But for the most part, we'll refer to these as 2x6s.
Okay. So why wood? That's what I want to know. Is it just because it's universal?
Yeah. Well, wood's been around for a long time. It absolutely has. It's proven. It's time tested, and it works very well. The securement of the wood is very critical. So anytime we talk about a wood nailer, we have to make sure that we're securing the wood nailer accordingly, either to the wall or to the roof deck. And a lot of people might say, well, how do you do that? That's where we have to rely on some design pressures and the designer of record coming in and saying, hey, this is how you should be installing your wood nailer. As I mentioned before, both Spry and Factory Mutual have guidelines. So if you're looking for some type of way of how do I install and what are the fastening patterns I use, that's critical. But it's been around, it's time tested, as I said, and it really goes unnoticed. So on a lot of existing roofs, you'll see if we're going to do a tear off or a re-roof, a lot of times the wood nailer is reused as long as it is in good shape. Typically, that is written into a specification where it says it becomes the responsibility of the contractor to replace that with like in kind. I think it's important that we understand looking at that wood nailer to ensure that it is in good working condition is critical. If there's any sign of deterioration, if there's a sign that it wasn't fastened properly, that's key as well. So there's a lot of things that kind of go into what that looks like. On a new construction job, typically it's written in the specification, typically under the carpentry section of the specification. So that's typically where you'll see them. But whenever you're installing wood, it's critical that you design it accordingly to meet the uplift pressures for the design.
Wow. So we mentioned alternatives. Wood's been around, it's time tested, it's proven, there's all these great things about wood. So what are some alternatives, and why might someone want to use something that's not wood?
Well, that's a great question. So if we talk about wood, it's time tested, it's been around, it works well. So when we do talk about wood, though, you have to think about what are some of maybe the cons. There's several pros, but some of the cons. We have the question of, do I use pressure treated or, treated wood lumber or not? There's a lot of questions around that and varying opinions. If you're going to use pressure treated lumber, you got to make sure that you're going to use the right fastener that's not going to have any corrosion from the copper that's in the retardant that goes into the wood. If you're not using pressure treated wood, you got to be very careful to protect it that it does not get wet at all. So you kind of run into that situation. So you have the question, treated or not. And then you really get into, God forbid, I did this not too recently, trying to go get some 2x4s to build something outside that was pressure treated lumber, and spent hours going through the wood bin at the local lumber store trying to get something that's straight. You get a lot of warping. You get a lot of, they're just not straight. So that becomes a pain as well when installing. So you start to look at some of those things, and then, when you do go to re-roof it, again, replace it with like and kind. Is it good? Are you sure it's good? Those are kind of some of the cons you might see with wood nailers. So what you're starting to see more of in the marketplace is what I would say is metal alternatives, whether that be some type of galvanized material or more so even extruded pieces. So you're basically going to have an extruded aluminum piece that you would anchor into your roof deck or into your wall that would then become the point of securement for your roof membrane and edge. So that you're starting to see more of that. With some of the galvanized options, you're able to, they come in smaller sections, so you could actually create radiuses and curves quite easily, as opposed to, imagine if you had a radius coping or a radius edge. Having your wood nailer meet the radius of the building could be hard to meet the aesthetics. So we have these metal components that are a little easier to radius. So that's one particular thing. And then, take a look at extruded aluminum. It is straight. It's going to be straight. And once you install it, you don't have to worry about any of the waviness or any of the deterioration of the wood if, God forbid, you ever get moisture into your roof system.
Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense. Because, in my mind, I'm thinking wood, and you said outdoor structures, wood decks, they have to be sealed. They have to be protected. Because they can deteriorate and rot. But metal, you would think then offers the advantage of longevity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not going to rot. A lot of these metal components that come to the job site are what I would say, they have drills or holes pre-drilled. So you know exactly where the fastener should go. There's no guessing. So that's another thing. But the other thing is, since it doesn't rot and it won't, over time degrade, when you do go to re-roof it, there's no replacing with like or kind, because the aluminum is going to still be there. So you talk about that in terms of performance, but also sustainability for the longevity of the roofs of the roof and the building.
So we were talking a little bit about when roof systems fail and the role that the edge metal or the wood nailers play. Is that the main reason in severe weather events why we see roof system failures, is because of the edge metal?
So, there's been studies done by Factory Mutual and others. When you look at roof failures that are caused or associated with wind, typically a roof blow off, it is estimated that 60+% of those failures are attributed to perimeter edge metal. So for roof failures that are caused by weather events, it's the perimeter edge that's really the intricate part. That being your cleat. Again, your membrane is going to run over your wood nailer and down, and it should extend beyond the wood nailer about an inch, just to prevent water back up there. But then you put your cleat on, and your cleat is then securing into your wood nailer, securing your membrane as well, and then you have your cover, which is your aesthetically looking, your nice colors on the side of the roof. That is the first line of defense. So we always talk about edge metal being critical to performance. It absolutely is. But the underlying piece there is what the edge metal is attached to, and that is the nailer, and ensuring that the nailer is secured properly. So it's really, when you look at the roof, everything looks great, but if that nailer is compromised below that roof, it can blow off even though the roof looks perfectly good. You could have the best edge metal system, but if that nailer is compromised or if it's not done right, you could have a problem. What we see, like a perfect example is they may not use the right fastener. I've seen situations where they've used plywood in a wood nailer and they use nails. That's not going to have the bite that a fastener would have. And that's actually something else that comes up. If you have a piece of plywood that's a half an inch, if you're securing your edge metal into that, how are you going to hit the middle of that piece of wood? And it's going to split. You're going to have no pull resistance. So when I mentioned earlier, you see 2x6s, you don't like to see the use of plywood in nailers. It's just not ideal. I would say that with one caveat, though, it could be used if it's going to be used as a spacer. If you're going to use it to build a little bit of height, you have to build a half an inch. Okay, use it as a spacer. But the main thing is when your edge metal is attached, you want the fastener of your edge metal to go in the middle of the 2x6, not into any sheets of plywood.
Okay. Wow. It's making me a little nervous because it sounds like it just has to be so exact and so precise. And
the good thing is that in our industry, the NRCA's had a lot of good recommendations over the years, and a lot of people get it. Well, I think what really happens is, and we actually did this in a poll recently, we asked a bunch of designers, it says, who's responsible for designing the wood nailer? And in the new construction, it's pretty clear. It goes into, as I mentioned, the carpentry section. But on re-roofing, there's a lot of roofs that are installed throughout North America that do not have a specification written around it. The ones that have a specification from whether it be an architect or a roof consultant, they typically address the wood nailer in some fashion. Hopefully it's a little bit more than just replace with like and kind, but it's the other vast majority of roofs that are being put down that do not have a specification. But historically, those roofing contractors have always kind of followed the NRCA recommendation. And if they do it the right way, it works. Otherwise, we would have had major disasters long ago. But I think it's important to bring it up as a topic, just because we're seeing a lot more wind events throughout the country, whether that be in South Florida, where historically that's where we always thought of high winds. That's working all the way up the Gulf Coast, the eastern seaboard. We see severe storms out in the desert. Tornadic activity throughout the Midwest is increased dramatically. So wind events are becoming more and more common. Therefore, I think we're starting to we see more and more failures because of perimeter edge failure. And it really kind of gives us attention that let's just take a look at it a little deeper and ensure that all the components for securement are good.
Well, yeah, because when there is wind events or severe weather, often we look at the damage and we say, okay, why did this fail? What was the problem? And that's where we see it was you, Mr. Wood Nailer. You didn't do your job, or you weren't installed properly. So we study this and we learn from it. And thankfully, we have folks like NRCA who are publishing guidelines.
Yeah, and IBEC, as part of that is they have Rakawi. Rakawi is a group of people that go out after storms and investigate failures. And really what they're doing, they're not trying to point blame. They're truly trying to understand what is happening and then how do we prevent it, just to kind of keep the industry going in the right direction, innovating, giving innovative ideas, which is really why I think these wood nailer alternatives are really key. Wood's not the same it was. You ask an old timer like me, wood's not the same as it was before. What they're using to pressure treat it, all of that stuff. I think having these alternatives that give sustainability options for the longevity of the building are just a part of the evolution of the industry.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned sustainability, because I think, that's more on people's minds than ever before. And when you can offer solutions like metal that have that longevity, or even for better performing roofing systems, right? Because your roof's going to last longer.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. People, you're right. A lot of people forget sustainability as longevity of the current roof system. It's just not, is it recyclable or something like that? But if I can make that roof last another 5-10 years beyond what the serviceable life was expected to be, that is sustainable. Protecting the roof from failure, from wind events, is part of that sustainability.
Yeah, that's key, I think. And this has been super informative for me anyway, in understanding why, so often, especially you see it in construction and industries like roofing, we've done it this way. It's worked fine. I don't need to try anything new, or I don't need to change anything. But then we have, like Carlisle Architectural Metals, who are looking for the next innovative solution, the better performing product. And so it's great to see companies like yours leading that way and making things stronger and better.
Yeah. Always innovating, always trying to get better. And I think that's, it's a fun industry to be in. I've been in it 25 years and a lot has changed. And I think we're continuing to push that envelope in a good way. The reason this kind of came up for us, just the educational piece, is we realized, looking at continuing education, there was never anything really out there on this topic. So we actually have an AIA, both through the Metal Era and through the Hickman Edge Systems. Both brands have an AIA presentation geared around this specific topic, goes into greater detail about some of those SPRI and FM standards and the specific fastening patterns based upon the wind loads and stuff like that. So we did it recently, had tremendous feedback, and what we learned is the number of questions we got and what was being asked. We realized that there's a gap here. We might talk about the chemistry behind a roofing product, or what it might be with something else, but we realized that there's a gap and a need for education to our design community on these wood nailers, how they're done, and then also the alternative solutions. So we're very excited. This is kind of a hot topic for us, and we're really hoping to take advantage of the interest to spread the word and let people know what to be looking for with wood nailers and their alternatives.
Yeah. Nobody wants to design a roof that's going to fail, right?
Exactly.
So I was going to ask if you have resources, if a contractor has questions, or, what does that support look like that you can give to the design professionals and contractors?
So as I mentioned, we have both the brands, Metal Era and Hickman Edge Systems, two totally different websites, metalera.com, hickmanedgesystems.com. We also have our local representatives in every market. You could reach out, and I don't have the phone numbers handy, I apologize, but you can reach out, look us up on Google, call. We could connect you to one of our technical sales representatives that are internal. We could get you in touch with our field our field sales folks. We also have a group what we call our regional technical sales, or RTSs. These are people that are from the industry, know the industry, that understand the edge, and they can get out and also assist you in the field with doing measurements and coming up with solutions. So those resources are available, and our website has all the information about the alternative options for wood nailers, whether that be a one-page slick that explains the features and benefits. Some of the an order sheet that talks about the specific sizes. One of the things with metal, you can't vary the height. It is what it is, especially on an extrusion. But they're kind of matched up to what standard heights are for insulation. So you'll notice that the standard heights align specifically to the specific R values you typically see in the market. So all of that's available through our website as well.
Excellent. Wow. Eric, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing this very valuable information. For those who want to get in contact with Metal Era or Hickman, they do have full directories on rooferscoffeeshop.com and metalcoffeeshop.com. So you can check them out there, and that would have their phone number, contact information as well. Eric, thank you. It was a pleasure having you.
Always, thank you very much. And I look forward to talking more about this and helping the industry grow and innovate better.
Awesome. And thank you everyone out there for listening to this episode. We hope to see you on a future episode of Roofing Road Trips. Be sure to follow us on social media because we don't want you to miss a thing. And we'll see you next time.
If you've enjoyed the ride, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us on every roofing adventure. Make sure to visit rooferscoffeeshop.com to learn more. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next Roofing Road Trip.